After the flaws in MC Toon's arguments had been pointed out in round 1, MC Toon has provided no response. The anti-flat earther Mr. Sensible, however, has chosen to step in the ring on his behalf and defend his fellow comrade in the League of Anti-Flat Earthers. Though it is kind of hard to do that when he claims science never proves anything.
Scientifically, there's no proof of anything.
It appears he hasn't figured out yet that saying science never proves anything and then coming to a debate is like showing up to a soccer game and then saying his team is unable to score any points. When that happens in soccer, or football as the Europeans like to call it, that is when you forfeit. For someone who claims science never proves anything, he sure made a lot of definitive statements in his response video, speaking assuredly as if he believes what he is saying is a proven fact. Therein, each definitive statement is a contradiction to his philosophy that science never proves anything. So, just for fun, let's go count the number of definitive statements that he made.
This is visor shot taken by Neil Armstrong of Buzz Aldrin. This is an original 1969 NASA print, not a copy, because it is a piece of evidence.
However, is it proof that the moon landing actually happened? No.
No, of course it's not proof. It is one piece of evidence. Well, I'm looking really closely at this print. Yes, I said print. It is not CGI. It is not computer graphics. That didn't exist then. This is an original print from the original negative. And I can't see anything that looks like studio. Now, a clever visual effects artist called Michael Ranger realised what we had here. He took a high-resolution scan of this visor shot and unwrapped the reflection to produce this. You can see the entire panoramic view, including the lander, Neil Armstrong, pieces of equipment, and in the top right, even the Earth. Absolutely nothing to indicate a studio.
Actually, last time we addressed how the quality of the shot itself was an indication that it was filmed in a studio.
This 1969 print is one of my proudest possessions, although some guy called Buzz Aldrin has scrawled his name across it. On the left, we've got a still taken from the physical 16mm video footage shot from Apollo 17 window as they were ascending after their mission. On the right, we have an image taken by the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter in 2011 of that same site. They match. For some reason, you don't trust your own space administration. Well, here is an independent photograph from the Indian Space Research Organisation from Chandrayaan-2, an image of the Eagle descent stage from one of the Apollo lunar missions.
NASA is in partnership with the Indian Space Administration. So how is that different than because Big Bird said so? So here we are questioning, did the moon landing happen? Which is questioning whether or not NASA told the truth. And his main point, we know that NASA told the truth because NASA said so.
No, Kyle, his main point is, here are some pieces of evidence that we went to the moon. He is not saying just because NASA said so.
The photographic evidence is not just a small amount. It's a gigantic amount.
The evidence that MC Toon presented that tells us that NASA told us the truth is NASA said so.
If there was one photo, you could probably just ignore it. If there are 2, 3, 500, 1,000, that evidence becomes a greater and greater preponderance of evidence supporting what happened.
Therefore, you should be a strong believer in Cookie Monster.
All the photos and film of Cookie Monster are evidence that the Cookie Monster is real. You need one of these, though. A piece of evidence that debunks it. A piece of evidence that shows that the Cookie Monster or the lunar landings could not be real.
You mean like this? Oh, sorry, but that's not the moon landing. How about here?
Look at his shadow here. It's on his right, or our right, which means that the sun would be to the left. Now, here's a pan to the right. This is not edited or spliced. The camera is just panning to the right, but now his shadow is straight ahead, or rather about 1 o'clock. Get a little zoom here. He does a little dance. Now he starts moving. Again, we pan to the right, and his shadow is now on the left. This is what the French call impossible. It is a total joke.
I think that's some pretty strong evidence of a stage right there.
Well, Carl, as I said, if there was just one photo, you could probably just throw it away. It would be relatively easy to fake a photograph. But when you have tens of thousands, when you've got hours of film footage, it becomes harder and harder to accept that it's all fake. Quantity of evidence does help support something.
And now we're back at Cookie Monster again.
There comes a time, Kyle, when conspiracy theorists need to grow up, need to actually weigh the evidence honestly.
And for all the people's claims of fakery, nobody has ever once actually done any forensic evidence from a forensic expert in photography to look at the images and see, are they real or not?
Though I disagree with your particular claim here. Just because you're not aware of anyone who has forensically studied the matter, that doesn't mean no one has. In fact, you are outright wrong here. This guy is a photography expert, and he has directly done what you claim no one has ever done.
Photography expert. This is going to be good. Excellent experience of Hasselblad's. Hasselblad's, the camera of choice for Apollo astronauts.
For those of you who haven't seen Gary Fong's video, it is excellent. He presents actual proof.
Proof, Kyle? Proof is a very big word. He may be presenting some evidence or making some claims, but proof. If he has proven it, then if I can debunk one thing he says, that shows he's wrong.
About that one thing. However, Gary Fong presented 6 different claims, which means he would have 5 claims left. He presents actual proof that the moon landing photos were not taken on the moon, and that NASA lied to everyone. And the points he makes are, 1. That camera is not weather sealed.
Well, he's correct. That camera is not weather sealed. Hasselblad's weren't weather sealed at that time. And exactly what sort of weather do you think they'd have to worry about on the moon? There's not that much snow, or rain, or hail, or dust storms. In fact, there's not much of anything, including an atmosphere.
Well, for one thing, weather sealing the camera would protect the camera from getting dirt inside of it when they fall down. Just look at them fall right on that camera mounted to their chest. I don't know about you, but I would think smashing my camera on the ground would affect the quality of the photos my camera is able to take. And you can't change a magazine on a camera like that with big, heavy gloves.
Au contraire, mon capitaine, and I will show you how in a couple of minutes.
2. Removing the dark slide would expose the film.
Yes, it would, but I don't see why you think that's a problem. Have a look at this. This is a cut down video of a guy explaining how to load a 35mm film into a camera. As you can see, once he's put the cartridge in, he pulls the film out. That film is exposed. He slots the film into the winder and winds it on for a bit so that the film is fully engaged. Then he closes the camera, sealing the film off from light, and winds it on a few frames. Now this is not exactly the same principle as the Hasselblads, but what they do is once they have loaded the film cartridge, having exposed a little bit of the film, they wind it on a few frames. This is not a problem.
If that is the case, those blanks should be on the original film you claim to have a print from. Also, his concern wasn't just about the first few slides. It was about the whole roll of film getting exposed to the high levels of radiation on the moon. 3. The screwed-on fixed settings would have left the film being ridiculously overexposed.
Some shots were overexposed, like this one, but of course they're not the ones they're going to show to everybody. What would be the point?
4. With a non-insulated camera, the temperature on the surface of the moon would have exposed the film, caused the film to melt, ruin the shutter mechanism, and cause the batteries to explode.
Kyle, that is wrong on so many counts. Yes, eventually, stood on the surface of the moon, your temperature would rise and rise and rise. But the second you step out, you aren't instantly at that temperature. You're in a vacuum, which doesn't conduct heat. You will receive radiative heat, but that will take time to warm up. The temperature wouldn't ruin the camera's shutter mechanism. Those were not ordinary Hasselblads. They were specially modified. They didn't have ordinary lubrication because that would have boiled away. As for the temperature of the film, they didn't use just any old film that you might be able to pick up in the shops. It was a special film. The film had a custom-made polyester base with a melting point of 254 degrees centigrade. They knew what they were doing, Kyle. It also had an ectochrome emulsion, which enabled it to provide good results over a wide temperature range.
Wow, that is a lot of definitive statements he just made. Has anyone seen him provide any references to prove his claims? I think he just expects us to take his word for it.
As I said, Kyle, the Hasselblads were not standard. Here is a standard Hasselblad EL. And if we look at a lunar modified one, we can see a major difference. Yep, they stripped off all the black. It's reflective. If it's reflecting the radiation, it's not absorbing it, helping to keep it cool.
And remember those metal slides on the playground? They are reflective, yet they still get burning hot in the middle of summer. It isn't the air that is doing that to them. It is the radiation. And point 6 was that the Van Allen radiation belts not only should have killed the astronauts, but it also should have damaged the film.
Yes, Kyle, there were concerns about radiation. They knew about it. They planned for it. They tried to minimize it. They had to pass through the Van Allen belts on their way to the moon. So a route was chosen that would both minimize the level of radiation that they would receive and the time that they were receiving it.
They knew about the Van Allen belts and planned for them. Yet it seems no one told the Apollo 12 astronaut Alan Bean about them.
Any ill effects from the Van Allen radiation belts?
No. Now, I'm not sure we went far enough out to encounter the Van Allen radiation belt. Maybe we did. I don't know the distance to the Van Allen radiation belt. And if we did, it wasn't a problem.
During the duration of the Apollo 11 mission, the crew received about 0.18 rem each. One CT scan delivers you about 1 rem. In a year, on average, Americans receive a radiation dose of about 0.62 rem. That's about 3.5 times what the Apollo astronauts received during their mission. So the radiation received by the astronauts, the radiation received by that film, was about 4 months worth. I don't think, Kyle, that we would expect them to drop dead, and I don't think we would expect the films to be ruined, especially as they were actually within a metal case.
I thought you saw this, but maybe you haven't seen this before.
If there is something that definitely, at least in my opinion, exposes the Apollo program as a fraud, it's the Orion project. The Orion project, after they retired the space shuttle, the next project that's on the board right now is called Project Orion. And they're pretty much telling you that Apollo never happened, especially when they put out videos like this talking about the Van Allen radiation belts.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
Wow, Mr. Sensible, if you're right, then what is this astronaut guy talking about?
One more time.
An area of dangerous radiation.
Oh. What's wrong with that radiation?
Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion.
But according to Mr. Sensible, it's not going to have any effect on film.
Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice. Once up, and once back.
That doesn't sound good.
Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice. Once up, and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
We must solve these challenges? Well, where were you, Mr. Sensible? It seems like you had the idea of just slapping some metal on it, right? No problem.
But the other thing that was really kind of interesting is what I saw here was the remove dark slide. Now the remove dark slide warning here, it says remove dark slide before installing the magazine.
Correct.
Now, if you are, in fact, a Hasselblad photographer, you'll know that the dark slide has to be in when you take off or remove the film magazine from the camera.
Correct.
And the reason that's the case is because the dark slide protects the film from being exposed.
Correct.
As you're taking the film magazine on and off. Doesn't that make sense? You don't want to expose the film or fog the rest of it while you take it off or put it back on, because that's film, right? It's sensitive to light.
Correct.
Light and temperature, which we'll get to in a second. But so that's the reason why you have to have the dark slide in. In fact, in a Hasselblad camera, you cannot mount the film magazine without the dark slide being in.
Correct.
There's a button on top and it'll catch it. It will not engage and you cannot mount or take it off without the dark slide being in.
Correct.
So this thing here about remove dark slide before installing magazine, that was really strange.
No, it's not strange. It just demonstrates that the amount of research you have done into this is zero. Zilch. Nada. This is a standard Hasselblad 500 EL-M. You can see just at the front of the black film canister a small rectangular metal handle. That is the handle for the dark slide. Here is the cartridge detached. You can see the dark slide, that silver square, and the handle now stuck out sideways. And here is the dark slide partially removed. You are quite correct. With a standard Hasselblad, you have to remove the dark slide after the cartridge is mounted to the camera. You cannot mount the cartridge without the dark slide. You also cannot remove the cartridge without the dark slide. Here is the modified Hasselblad cartridge for the lunar missions. You can see that the handle, shown there on the left, is a lot bigger. Here it is detached. The reason the handle is so much bigger, please take note, Kyle, is so that the astronauts can grab it with their clumsy gloves. Now, the Hasselblad 500 EL that was modified for the moon had a grid, a Rousseau grid. Those are the marks that you see, the crosshair marks you see on so many of the photographs. Those cross-hatchings are etched into the glass, and that glass will sit literally just above the film. They are very fine. They are accurate to within 0.02 millimeters. We don't want them damaged. So the concern was that when you mount the cartridge with the dark slide, it could scratch the glass. Camera was modified so the dark slide not only could, but should be removed prior to mounting the cartridge. This would mean that some of the film is exposed, but all you've got to do is, once the cartridge is mounted, is wind it on a few frames, just like with a 35mm camera. Kyle, I am totally willing to accept that that guy is an absolute expert in Hasselblad cameras. Not a problem. However, he is not an expert in the lunar modified Hasselblad cameras, as I have just demonstrated. He proved nothing. He provided some evidence, he made some claims, and I debunked them. It's okay to question something, but you must look at the evidence. You must do research, which is something that guy didn't do, and neither have you.
Wow, 120 different definitive claims in response there. So you don't believe science proves anything, to the point that you do not believe it can be proven that some cats eat food, Yet you expect me to believe you on all of your 120 different definitive claims there and treat them all as if they were proven facts? Were you lying to everyone when you made those claims? If you believe science never proves anything, then perhaps you should have said, this might be so, or maybe this is so, instead of saying, this is so.
Scientifically, there's no proof of anything.
That statement right there invalidates all 120 of your definitive claims and is a massive contradiction. If you have changed your mind on the matter, please say so. I know MC Toon makes a similar claim.
So it's worth addressing just quickly the idea of scientific proof. Proof is absolute. It excludes all other possibilities, thus making it untestable. Science is testable. That's why there is no such thing as scientific proof. Karl Popper said the empirical evidence of objective science has nothing absolute about it. So everything in science is available to be tested, disproven, falsified. Pseudoscience makes claims of proofs.
So according to him, science can't prove that this pancake is burnt. He calls a claim like that pseudoscience. And MC Toon is with you in claiming it can't be proven that some cats eat food. A cat's diet is biology, and MC Toon has made it clear that he does not consider that to be science. It is not too late to change your mind on this. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why MC Toon has chosen not to defend himself in this debate. He literally can't until he changes his mind on the matter. Also, please keep in mind that Dr. McLaughlin, in her peer-reviewed article from the Journal of College Science Teaching, directly said words like prove, correct, and true should be removed from our vocabulary completely and immediately. She is saying that because they are definitive statements that treat something as if it is a proven fact. So every time you use the word correct, you are openly rebelling against her and committing taboo on her terms. And I applaud that. I adamantly disagree with her and firmly believe that science is capable of proving things. Some cats eat food is a proven fact. A cat's diet is biology, and biology is science. There is no shame in being bold and acknowledging it as such. Alright, now I'll go ahead and do a quick recap here. This moon landing debate started with MC Toon, where he made 4 arguments. First, MC Toon presented the visor image, which Mr. Sensible agrees doesn't prove anything.
Of course it's not proof. It is one piece of evidence.
Second, MC Toon showed us more NASA images and more or less said we should trust NASA because NASA said so. Mr. Sensible then stood up and said, don't trust NASA because NASA said so. Trust NASA because the Indian Space Administration said so. Which is like believing in Cookie Monster because Big Bird said so. That still isn't something we can verify for ourselves. Third, MC Toon claimed there is a gigantic amount of photos which stand as evidence that the moon landing happened. I said the amount of footage doesn't matter. There are 4,626 episodes of Sesame Street, and no amount of footage will ever make Cookie Monster more than a puppet. Mr. Sensible then said, oh, well, I don't believe in Cookie Monster because of images like this that show Cookie Monster being faked. So I provided him with some comparable footage that shows the moon landing being faked. Now the question is, will that change his mind? Or will Mr. Sensible move the goalpost? Fourth, MC Toon claimed no photography expert has ever forensically analyzed the moon landing photos and said they were faked. So I presented the photography expert Gary Fong, who claims they were faked.
Kyle, I am totally willing to accept that that guy is an absolute expert in Hasselblad cameras.
So we agree that MC Toon was wrong in his statement. Oh yeah, and fifth, MC Toon claimed, oh, and I met an astronaut once, which Mr. Sensible didn't comment on. But I hope we can agree that this is another case of trusting NASA because NASA said so. In this, we have found quite a bit of common ground. So maybe, just maybe, we can agree to toss each of these arguments out entirely. Mr. Sensible, I await your response. This message has been brought to you by the Flat Earth Institute of Science.